In recent months, cautious but persistent signals have been increasingly heard within the technology industry that Apple is standing on the threshold of the most radical step in its entire history, a step that could permanently change the understanding of personal devices. According to information from several independent sources at once, including Bloomberg analysts, former Apple engineers, and component suppliers in Asia, the company is preparing to present in 2026 an absolutely new type of device. Not a smartphone, not a tablet, and not a headset in the conventional sense, but something that inside Apple itself is increasingly referred to as a post-iPhone device, a device of the era after the smartphone. In various leaks, it appears under working names such as Apple Airvision, Apple Vision One, or simply Vision without any suffixes, which in itself is highly uncharacteristic for the company and points to the special status of the project. According to people familiar with internal discussions in Cupertino, Apple is deliberately moving away from the logic of yet another gadget and instead is creating a new fundamental interface for human interaction with the digital world, a device that effectively has no direct analogs on the market because competitors still think in terms of screens, bodies, and diagonals, while Apple is betting on the disappearance of the screen as a physical object. We are talking about a hybrid wearable device that combines elements of a spatial computer, a personal AI assistant, and wearable electronics, but without a bulky headset and without the need to constantly hold something in the hands. According to insiders, Apple Airvision is an ultra-thin device integrated into the Apple Watch and Vision Pro ecosystem, capable of projecting an interface directly into the user's field of view using next-generation micro-optical systems, with control carried out through gestures, gaze, voice, and contextual AI that anticipates the user's actions before the user consciously realizes them. This, according to Financial Times analysts, is where the main revolution lies. Apple no longer offers the user to look at a screen. Apple offers interaction with reality augmented by a digital layer that appears only when it is truly needed. Sources in the supply chain claim that the key technology behind Airvision will be a new micro-OLED and waveguide optics architecture being developed by Apple together with TSMC and several highly secretive Silicon Valley startups. And this is not about technologies available to the market today, but about solutions that competitors will be able to replicate at best in 5 to 7 years. That is why inside Apple there is confidence that the device will have no direct analogs, just as the iPhone once had none at the moment of its launch, despite the existence of smartphones from Nokia, BlackBerry, and Palm. It is important to understand that Apple is not simply creating new hardware, it is rebuilding the entire logic of interaction with the digital environment, and artificial intelligence plays a key role here. According to the information, as part of the Airvision project, Apple is creating its own next-generation AI platform that will be deeply integrated into the device and operate locally without constant data transmission to the cloud, which will allow the company to preserve its signature focus on privacy and security. This AI will not simply respond to queries, it will become an intermediary between the human and the digital world, filtering notifications, content, and information so that the user receives only what is truly important at a specific moment in time. Morgan Stanley analysts note that this is precisely what could strike at the current smartphone model, which today overwhelms users with screens, notifications, and constant demands for attention, turning the device into a source of stress, whereas Apple Airvision is positioned as a technology that frees attention. According to one former Apple top executive who asked to remain anonymous, inside the company this project is perceived not as another product line, but as a change of era, and that is precisely why Apple is willing to wait until 2026, refining the technology to a level that meets its standards, instead of rushing and releasing an unfinished solution as competitors often do. Particular attention should be paid to the fact that Apple is deliberately not following the path of foldable smartphones, wrist devices, and rollable displays, despite active experimentation by Samsung and Chinese manufacturers in this area. In the view of Apple engineers, flexible displays remain a compromise solution that merely extends the life of the smartphone concept without solving the fundamental problem of screen dependency. In contrast, Airvision does not require a constant physical display at all, The screen appears only when it is needed and disappears when it is not, which radically changes the user experience. This is why Bloomberg intelligence analysts call this project potentially the most dangerous for the consumer electronics market in the last 20 years, as it threatens not only Samsung and Android manufacturers, but the entire ecosystem of applications built around smartphones. If Apple succeeds, developers will have to rethink interfaces, UX, and the very principles of interaction with users, which would mean a large-scale shift across the entire industry. An important signal is also that in recent years, Apple has been actively acquiring startups in the fields of neural interfaces, eye tracking, gesture control, and contextual AI, with many of these deals not being publicly disclosed. According to Nikkei Asia, Apple is also investing significant funds in new types of batteries and energy-efficient chips. Since Airvision's battery life is considered a critically important factor, the device must operate all day without recharging, without heating up, and without being felt on the body. All of this indicates that Apple is preparing not just a product, but a foundation for the next decade, an ecosystem in which the iPhone will gradually move to the background, remaining only one element rather than the central device. Inside Apple itself, according to sources, a scenario is already being discussed in which iPhone sales begin to gradually decline after 2027, but the company is consciously taking this risk, understanding that if it does not disrupt its own product, competitors will do it instead. This is precisely the philosophy of Apple once articulated by Steve Jobs. It is better to cannibalize yourself than to allow others to do it. If the leaks are confirmed and Apple indeed presents Airvision in 2026, the market may face the largest technological shift since the emergence of smartphones. And then the question will not be whether everyone likes this device, but how quickly the world adapts to a reality in which the phone is no longer the center of a person's digital life. Moreover, sources in Cupertino claim that inside the company, a scenario is being considered in which Airvision eventually becomes a mandatory hub of the Apple ecosystem, through which all key services will pass, from Apple Pay and iMessage to future AI features and spatial media, while the iPhone gradually turns into a secondary device, similar to how the Mac today is a tool for work rather than an everyday universal gadget. It is precisely this scenario, according to Goldman Sachs analysts, that causes the greatest concern among Apple's competitors, because it implies not just the release of a new product, but the capture of control over the user's attention, time, and life context, which in the digital economy is the most valuable resource. If these assessments are correct, Apple's 2026 presentation may go down in history not as another device launch, but as the moment when the company officially announces the beginning of the end of the smartphone era, offering the world an alternative for which the industry is not yet ready.